So I want to dig into healthcare, the future of healthcare, health span, longevity, and all of that. But I think to begin, it's probably worth just canvassing the current state of healthcare and how you think about it as a basis point for how we're going to disrupt this broken system and reimagine a better, newer one.
Yeah, it's completely ridiculous. It's a system that deserves to die under its own weight. And just like Google disrupted libraries, and like when's the last time you went to a library and provided ubiquitous access to information, we're going to see the same thing happen in healthcare. And it's really going to be not the existing healthcare companies that make the transition. It's going to be a flock of new ones. And the healthcare companies of the future may sound like Amazon and Google and Microsoft and others, Apple to add to the list. It's really going to be the convergence of these exponential technologies, convergence of AI and sensor technologies and synthetic biology and quantum computing. One of the things I'm clear about is this decade, we're going to see healthcare move out of the hospitals, out of the doctor's office, into your home, onto your body, right? And it's going to become, what has historically been a reactive, generic system. I mean, it's, the numbers as well as I do, that, when you have an FDA-approved drug that you've been given to take, you think it's going to work for you. But it works for like 10 to 20% of the people it's prescribed for. It just may not be working with you, your physiology, your genomics, your microbiome, and so forth. And the potential is a completely personalized, completely preventative and predictive model where the recommendations I'm getting from the healthcare AI it's about making yourself the CEO of your own health. I think about that. I think about Jarvis from Iron Man, that AI that Iron Man has, as really continuously measuring my biology from sensors I'm wearing that are implanted, that are in my bed or the chair, that's measuring exactly what's going on all the time and giving me recommendations. This is the future of healthcare. This is where we're going. And it's a future of healthcare which, like Google, is demonetized and democratized. It's going to be the best healthcare ever, and it's going to be the lowest cost healthcare available to everybody.
The democratization aspect of it, though, only comes in time. As most of these things go, they begin very expensive in that early stage, and that's sort of a hurdle that has to be addressed. But I mean, currently, when you look at our healthcare system, particularly in the United States, it's sort of sinking under the bloat of its, bureaucratic, morass, and it's a situation in which we're dealing with human beings at the late stages of whatever's ailing them. You don't go to the doctor unless something's wrong, with the exception of the occasional, check-in or whatever, which is fine. But we're dealing with all of these conditions once they have progressed and matured to a certain point, and then it becomes a situation in which the doctor is diagnosing and prescribing a medical intervention that oftentimes, at least pharmaceutically, is treating a symptom and not the underlying condition. And with the advent of these technologies, we're able, it seems to me, a lot of this has to do with early detection at 100%. The very outset of these situations so that they can be addressed, because once they've crossed a certain threshold and matured to a certain point, they become almost impossible to, untangle or reverse.
Catch cancer at stage 0 or stage 1, you've got a 95 to 99% chance of a complete cure. Catch it at stage 3 or, God forbid, stage 4, your chance of a cure is down to like 10%. And we're all developing cancers all the time. I think that's something that people don't understand. That is the normal course of what's going on in biology. But we have our immune systems that find the cancer and zap it before it gets uncontrollable. And it's when your immune system gets exhausted or your cancer has certain tricks to hide itself from your immune system that it can get out of control. And it's about early diagnosis. And one of the things I'd love to talk with you about, if not now and a little bit later in our conversation, is the incredible progress in diagnostic technologies. I just went 2 days ago for my annual health upload. And this is not like, listen to your lungs and your heart and tap your knee and prostate exam. No, I'm digitized. 150 gigabytes of data about me, right? Full body MRI, brain vasculature, an AI-enabled coronary CT. So we're using a platform called Clearly that is looking for soft plaque, not calcified plaque. If it's calcified, it's safe. It's not going to rupture. It's like, cemented into the wall. And if it's not, occluding the coronary artery, that's fine. But if it's soft plaque that can rupture and block, that's where it's dangerous. And the old CTs don't find that. Clearly does. And so that I do every year. I did it, which is brand new technology that we've got at Fountain Life. I did it a year ago, and I had a really good score. It wasn't perfect. I put some interventions in place, and my cardiac status has significantly improved in a year, but I can measure that. And that it gives me inspiration to keep going, right? Then we do, part of this upload is your genome, your microbiome, your full, blood omics. We do a GRAIL, liquid biopsy test, right? Which is
Tell
amazing.
me what is that?
So GRAIL, a guy named Jeff Huber, who was a senior VP at Google, a beautiful guy. His wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. It was probably stage 3, might have been stage 4 when it was too late. And she passed. And being the entrepreneur he said, there's got to be something better we can do. We've got to be able to find these cancers in the body. So he partnered with a group within Illumina, which is the major sequencing company out there, and developed what's called the liquid biopsy. And so when a cancer is growing someplace in your body, you don't know where it is, it's dividing and cells rupture, and the DNA from those cancer cells becomes accessible in your bloodstream. And so GRAIL is a blood test you take, and it looks for 50 different cancer markers in your bloodstream. And depending on how old you are, because the frequency of cancer is increasing, it's a test you do. Today, I do it once a year. Eventually, I'll do it every 6 months. Who knows, maybe even a quarter. It's relatively low cost compared to the expenses. And so if you detect a cancer, you're then beginning to look, and the full body MRI will show that to you as well. So, for me, it's like a forest fire. When you want to put the forest fire out, when it's, at ignition, or when it's a conflagration.
Right. So right now, when we think about the sort of things that we should all be doing on a daily basis, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit. It's like
100%.
Get
the basics.
Yeah, it's
stuff you talk
sleep,
about all
nutrition,
the time.
exercise, reduce your stress, mindfulness practices, community. Sort of finding purpose in your life.
Mindset,
all of these sorts of things, and then beyond that, we start to venture into this terrain that is, in your bailiwick. And I've had, some of your colleagues on the show, Matthew Walker, to talk about sleep. I've had David Sinclair on a couple times, and we've gone down that rabbit hole of the emerging science. And then Sergey Young, who, as you know, because you work with him, his book just paints this, wild picture of the future. We're at the very early stages of this, where we're wearing Oura rings and Whoop, and
Apple
we
watches,
have like all that kind of stuff. But this is just very nascent in terms of what's to come. So